Good evening, I'm drinking beer from a wine glass and you're watching the 15th episode of Dissecting Who. On this episode I'll be dissecting Planet of Evil, a high concept sci-fi horror. So as I said, this serial is high concept sci-fi. It's on a crazy alien planet. The monster is an alternate dimensional, crazy, weird antimatter creature. We have all this weird, crazy, psychedelic shit going on. None of this doctors on the Earth looking into his companion's romance shit.
How's you? Sorry I'm late.
Who are you having dinner with?
I can't keep doing this. I can't do it.
The next few days are all about you.
This serial has what is probably the best set in classic Who history. It's a crazy, dense alien jungle, and it has great atmosphere. It has fog, it has water, it's lit just perfectly. It's dark, we can see everything, and it's not ruined with soap opera style overlighting. So this episode is the first without Harry. It's just the Doctor and Sarah. And I have to say straight off the bat, this formula works a lot better. Sarah gets a lot more airtime, Tom gets a lot more airtime. You're not splitting up the dialogue between these three characters.
What did you say?
You promised me we'd be back in London 5 minutes before leaving Loch Ness.
Did I?
Oh, you're trying to wriggle out of it.
Wriggle out of what?
Your promise.
The best thing about the Tom Baker era of Doctor Who is Tom Baker and all these little subtle nuances. There's a scene where two characters are talking, and in the background he's just standing there wide-eyed.
And then for a while it stopped. We thought that we were safe, but whatever it was, it decided to leave us in peace, but it wasn't to be.
The killings always happened at night.
Oh yes, the nights are the worst.
And his delivery of lines is really obscure at points.
We have the power to do anything we like. Absolute power over every particle in the universe. Everything that has ever existed and ever will exist. As from this moment. Are you listening to me, Romana?
Yes, of course I'm listening.
If you're not listening, I can make you listen. Because I can do anything. As from this moment, there's no such thing as free will in the entire universe. There's only my will, because I possess the key to time.
I also think that the relationship between the Doctor and Sarah is far more extensive now that Harry's gone. You see the dialogue play between them and it just works. They have charisma and you can tell they like working together.
Nothing at all. What makes you think something's gone wrong?
Because you always get rude when you're trying to cover up a mistake.
Nothing of consequence. Slight overshoot, easily rectified.
Come on, where are we?
We've come out of the time vortex the wrong point, that's all. A few years too late.
How many?
30,000.
So the basic plot for this serial is the Doctor and Sarah land on a weird, creepy alien planet and discover a research team that's getting slowly killed by this mysterious monster. A military unit lands on the planet and starts to try to figure out the mystery by itself in opposition to the Doctor.
The descent chamber's ready, Ponty.
Now, for the first 3 episodes, the Doctor's adversary isn't this monster, it's this military unit, which is great. The Doctor knows what he's doing, he's intelligent, he's alien, and he's trying to fix the problem. And the military unit thinks that he's the problem and doesn't understand all these crazy, weird, eccentric things he's saying, so constantly capturing him and imprisoning him. I like that the formula is flipped a little bit and it's not a scary monster thriller with the Doctor and Sarah.
Raise your hands over your heads.
Search him.
I can empty my own pockets, thank you.
Put your hands over your heads.
Although I do have to say that the costumes that the military unit has is a bit silly, and sometimes you don't take them as seriously as you should.
We won't find them in this jungle.
They won't escape. We'll launch the oculoid tracker at first light.
The monster in this serial is a really cool concept. It's from an alternate dimension, and it's phasing in and out from its dimension into ours. And the way that it's realized is really unique and different in comparison to all that other monster shit we've seen. And when it phases into our reality, it grabs people and phases them into its reality. And then it tosses them back like a piece of beef jerky. All the nutrients and moisture of these people have been sucked out. It's a real brutal way to die. So in the last episode I mentioned how Philip Hinchcliffe's horror concepts were leaking more into the show, and that's because this is Tom and Philip Hinchcliffe, the producers, second season, and Philip was given a lot of old scripts, the Dalek story, the Cybermen story, and now that that whole era is gone and he's done with that, he's overseeing all the scripts and how they're written and the concepts. And I have to say, this is arguably the greatest era of Doctor Who. Tom is at his best. Elizabeth and Tom work so well together. The themes and narrative becomes much darker for a much more older audience. And the whole thing just lifts up into a weird, twisted 70s sci-fi stratosphere.
On Zeta Minor is the boundary between existence as you know it and the other universe which you just don't understand.
Other universe?
Yes. From the beginning of time, it has existed side by side with the known universe. Each is the antithesis of the other.
So to communicate with this antimatter interdimensional monster, Tom jumps into this pit, which is like a portal into its reality. And there's an amazingly awesome psychedelic sci-fi scene. I just love this scene. It's right up my alley. I think they really did miss an opportunity though, because at this point in the serial, Tom had taken off his scarf.
Do you ever get tired of being pushed around?
Frequently.
But I think would have added to it a little bit extra if Tom's iconic scarf was flapping in the wind while this crazy tripped out 70s acid thing was happening. So I have to say that this serial does a great job of setting up characters. There are 4 or 5 main people within this military crew who are set up very well. You know who their characters are, what their intentions are, what their motivations are. It's not like Rogue One, where your characters are just fickle caricatures. Good job, Disney. Good job. And even though the military unit is out against Tom, there's subtle nuances in that because there's a relationship in the military unit between everyone, and there's conflict in the military unit between the commander and the second in command and a scientist guy who was originally on the planet. So there's this great atmosphere of emotions and characters.
You're wasting time. My mineral samples must be loaded aboard, and we must prepare for immediate takeoff.
I am well aware of your high position in the science authorities, Professor. But this is a military expedition with military objectives.
So this episode is sponsored by Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola, it's not good for you. So there's a scene where the Doctor fights the Wolfman. I'm not going to give you any context into that. You're going to just have to watch the serial yourself. And in this fight scene, there's a great classic Who moment where Tom flies back and he hits the side of a solid rock wall, and the whole thing shakes because it's just a shitty plywood set. I love it. It's so humorous and it just resonates. Classic Who, better than a lot of things. We also see the Doctor punch someone in this serial, which is weird. You don't see him resort to physical violence much, and it just comes out of nowhere. You're like, what the fuck? Doctor just hit somebody? It's a bottle cap.
Open it. Externally, as you can see, it resembles a London police box.
Open it!
So the death scene for most actors is the pivotal moment for their character, and we see a lot of good death scenes in this serial. But there's one guy who obviously just doesn't give a shit. He just falls to the ground. Still in frame? Good job, buddy. You really put a lot of effort into that. Being that this is Tom's second series, he's starting to have more force behind the scenes and become a bigger presence. He's telling the director he should change his lines, he's improvising, and he's even giving advice to people on set on how to frame stuff and light stuff. This is in its early days, but by the last series, Tom really became arrogant and was just at people thinking that he was the best, which is understandable, I guess, if you have a big ego. I mean, he was the Doctor for 7 years. He became the Doctor, the person that everybody recognized as the Doctor.
Unlike if you were in a soap opera, you see, you kind of ebb and flow. You don't always carry the narrative, whereas week after week, Elizabeth and I particularly, had to carry the plot as well and explain things. Of course, the sole survivor of the expedition.
So Sorensen is Anti-Man?
Yes.
And he was working on the production longer than most people when all the new crews started coming in, but it's funny to hear about him telling the director he should change lines or just improvising on set and people just having to roll with it.
Particularly remember Tom in rehearsal working with Dave Maloney on the script, and Tom, as ever, wanted to change lots and lots.
Where the actors become powerful is that because they're right at the forefront of it all the time, I was in a position, with Elizabeth to back me up, to advise the director, whoever he was, when the director say, now, in this scene, Tom, this is what, and you say, we did it last week, David.
Famously, Tom was also a big drinker. He would go to the pub on his lunch break at the BBC, drink like 3 pints and come back to rehearsal, go out to the pub every night with people just throwing around money. And, you know, alcohol abuse is bad and I don't want to promote that. But Tom... So here's an excerpt from an interview with Tom when he was talking about the discussions at the pub.
Girls, then it was to do with treachery, adultery, betrayal, lies, exaggerations, more adultery, more betrayal, backbiting, calumny, and generally sin. Yeah, sin.
That's great. I love you, Tom. You're such a character. In conclusion, I think this is a standout serial. It's in the best era of Doctor Who, arguably. You got Tom and Philip and Elizabeth just hitting their mark perfectly. And the writers and Bob Pipe Smoking Holmesies are bringing in the best material, the most craziest tripped out sci-fi concepts. Thank you for watching, and it'd really help out if you could like, subscribe, and in the comments tell me how I got all the facts wrong and how my opinion is null and void. Thank you.